The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training grounds. As Jake Morrison stepped off the transport truck, his boots hitting the dusty ground with uncertainty. At 19 years old, he looked more like a college student than a future sniper. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his gear, not from fear, but from the overwhelming reality that he was about to begin the most challenging phase of his military career. Jake had grown up on a small farm in Montana where hunting was a way of life rather than a hobby. His grandfather had taught him to shoot when he was barely tall enough to hold a rifle properly. Every weekend, they would venture into the wilderness, tracking deer through dense forests and across open meadows. His grandfather, a World War II veteran, had instilled in him the importance of patience, precision, and respect for the weapon in his hands. Despite his rural upbringing and natural shooting ability, Jake had never imagined himself in the military. He had planned to study engineering at the state university, following in his father's footsteps. However, financial struggles at home forced him to reconsider his options. The military offered education benefits and a steady income that could help support his family while providing him with valuable skills and training. When Jake first enlisted, his recruiters noticed his exceptional marksmanship scores during basic training. While other recruits struggled to hit targets at standard distances, Jake consistently achieved perfect scores with what seemed like minimal effort. His drill sergeants took notice, and soon recommendations were being made for him to pursue specialized sniper training. The transition from basic training to the elite sniper program was like jumping from a gentle stream into a raging river. The physical demands were intense, but the mental challenges proved even more daunting. Jake found himself surrounded by seasoned soldiers who had years of combat experience under their belts. Many of them had already served multiple deployments and had seen action in various theaters of operation around the world. During the first weeks of training, Jake struggled with confidence. The other candidates seemed to move with a purpose and knowledge that he lacked. They spoke in military jargon that he was still learning, shared stories of missions he could only imagine, and demonstrated tactical knowledge that came from real-world experience. There were moments when he questioned whether he belonged in this elite group. The training facility was located in a remote desert location, chosen specifically for its challenging terrain and extreme weather conditions. The landscape provided the perfect environment for testing the limits of both equipment and human endurance. Temperatures soared during the day and dropped dramatically at night, creating additional complications for precision shooting. Instructor Sergeant Major Williams, a legendary figure in the sniper community, ran the program with an iron fist and exacting standards. He had spent over 20 years in special operations and had more confirmed long-range eliminations than almost anyone in the military. His weathered face told stories of countless missions, and his piercing eyes seemed to evaluate every candidate's potential with supernatural accuracy. During the initial assessment phase, candidates were tested on various skills, including camouflage, stalking, observation, and basic marksmanship. Jake excelled in the shooting portions but struggled with some of the more technical aspects of the training. The mathematical calculations required for long-range shooting were complex, involving factors like wind speed, humidity, temperature, barometric pressure, and even the rotation of the Earth. Williams noticed Jake's raw talent but also recognized his lack of experience in combat situations. After one particularly challenging exercise where Jake had missed several shots due to nervousness, Williams pulled him aside for a private conversation. The instructor's voice was gruff but not unkind as he explained that natural ability alone would not be sufficient to succeed in this program. The conversation became a turning point for Jake. Williams shared his own story of starting as an uncertain young soldier and emphasized that every expert had once been a beginner. He explained that the military invested significant time and resources into sniper training because the role was critical to mission success and soldier safety. The responsibility that came with being a sniper extended far beyond personal achievement. As the weeks progressed, Jake began to find his rhythm within the training program. He developed study habits that helped him master the technical aspects of long-range shooting. He spent extra hours in the classroom, working through ballistic calculations until they became second nature. His determination to succeed became evident to both instructors and fellow candidates. The physical conditioning portion of the program pushed every candidate to their limits. Long-distance movements with heavy equipment, extended periods in uncomfortable positions, and survival exercises tested their endurance and mental fortitude. Jake's farm background proved advantageous during these challenges, as he was accustomed to long days of physical labor and uncomfortable conditions. One particular exercise stood out in Jake's memory. The candidates were required to move several miles across difficult terrain, while carrying full equipment loads. Then establish a concealed firing position and remain motionless for over 12 hours while conducting surveillance. The mental discipline required for such exercises was as important as the physical capability. During this exercise, Jake learned valuable lessons about patience and observation skills. As he lay motionless in his carefully constructed hide, he watched the natural world around him. He observed how animals moved through the environment, how light changed throughout the day, and how weather conditions affected visibility. These observations would later prove crucial to his development as a marksman. The training also included extensive work with various rifle systems and optical equipment. Jake learned to maintain and operate different weapons platforms, each with its own characteristics and capabilities. He studied the ballistic properties of different ammunition types and learned how environmental factors affected projectile flight paths. Classroom instruction covered topics ranging from basic physics to advanced meteorology. Instructors explained how altitude affected air density, how humidity influenced bullet trajectory, and how temperature variations could impact accuracy. Jake found himself fascinated by the scientific aspects of precision shooting, discovering that successful sniping required as much intellectual preparation as physical skill. As his technical knowledge improved, so did his confidence. Jake began to stand out among his peers, not just for his natural shooting ability, but for his dedication to mastering every aspect of the craft. He volunteered for additional training opportunities and sought advice from instructors whenever possible. The program also included extensive training in fieldcraft and camouflage techniques. Candidates learned to construct effective hide sites using natural materials and to move through various terrain types without detection. These skills were essential for operational success, as snipers often needed to remain undetected in hostile territory for extended periods. Jake discovered that he had a natural aptitude for camouflage and concealment. His hunting experience had taught him to understand animal behavior and movement patterns, knowledge that translated well to avoiding human detection. He could construct hide sites that blended seamlessly with the surrounding environment and move through terrain with minimal disturbance. Mock combat scenarios became increasingly complex as the training progressed. Candidates faced realistic situations that required split-second decision-making and precise shot placement under pressure. These exercises were designed to simulate the stress and uncertainty of actual combat operations. During one memorable scenario, Jake was tasked with providing overwatch for a simulated rescue operation. Multiple targets appeared simultaneously at various distances, requiring him to prioritize threats and engage them in proper sequence. His performance during this exercise impressed both instructors and fellow candidates, marking a significant milestone in his development. The psychological aspects of sniper training received considerable attention throughout the program. Instructors emphasized the weight of responsibility that came with the role and the importance of maintaining proper mental state under extreme stress. They discussed the ethical considerations involved in taking human life and the importance of following rules of engagement. Jake found these discussions challenging but necessary. His rural upbringing had instilled strong moral values, and he struggled initially with the concept of using his skills against human targets. Through extensive counseling and discussion with instructors and military chaplains, he developed a framework for understanding his potential role in protecting fellow soldiers and accomplishing military objectives. As the initial training phase neared its conclusion, Jake had transformed from an uncertain farm boy into a confident and capable marksman. His scores had improved dramatically, and he had earned the respect of his instructors and peers. However, he knew that the real test of his abilities would come during the advanced phases of training, where he would face even greater challenges and higher expectations. The foundation had been laid, but the journey toward becoming an elite marksman was far from complete. Jake understood that the knowledge and skills he had acquired were just the beginning. The path ahead would demand even greater dedication, precision, and mental fortitude. Little did he know that within months he would find himself facing a challenge that would test every lesson he had learned and push his abilities to their absolute limits. 6 months after completing his initial training, Jake found himself deployed to a forward operating base in a mountainous region where coalition forces were engaged in complex counter-terrorism operations. The stark landscape was unlike anything he had experienced during training, with jagged peaks rising thousands of feet above narrow valleys and ancient villages clinging to impossible slopes. The base housed a mixture of conventional forces and special operations units, each with distinct missions and capabilities. Jake was assigned to a specialized reconnaissance team tasked with providing intelligence and precision fire support for various operations throughout the region. His team leader, Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, was a veteran sniper with over 8 years of experience and multiple deployments under her belt. Rodriguez immediately recognized Jake's potential, but also understood that combat experience was vastly different from even the most realistic training exercises. She took him under her wing, sharing practical knowledge that could only be gained through real-world operations. Her guidance proved invaluable as Jake adapted to the complexities of operating in an active theater. The mountainous terrain presented unique challenges for precision shooting. Extreme altitude affected both human physiology and ballistic performance, while unpredictable weather patterns created constantly changing conditions. Wind patterns in the mountains were particularly complex, with gusts and cross-currents that could dramatically affect projectile trajectories over long distances. During his first weeks in theater, Jake participated in several routine patrol operations designed to familiarize him with the operational environment. These missions allowed him to observe local terrain features, weather patterns, and tactical considerations specific to the region. He kept detailed notes in his field journal, recording observations that would later prove crucial to his success. The local population lived in small communities scattered throughout the valleys and mountainsides. Most were farmers and herders who had little involvement in the ongoing conflict, but intelligence reports indicated that hostile forces used the difficult terrain to their advantage, establishing positions in remote areas and moving through mountain passes under cover of darkness. Jake's first significant mission came 3 weeks after his arrival. Intelligence sources had identified a high-value target who was suspected of coordinating attacks against coalition forces. The target was reportedly operating from a compound located in a remote valley, accessible only through treacherous mountain paths. The mission required Jake's team to establish an observation post on a ridge overlooking the target area, approximately 2 miles from the suspected compound. From this position, they would conduct surveillance and provide precision fire support if needed. The approach to their position would require a grueling overnight movement through difficult terrain while carrying full equipment loads. Rodriguez led the team through careful mission planning, considering factors such as approach routes, escape plans, communication protocols, and contingency procedures. She emphasized the importance of remaining undetected while maintaining the ability to engage targets at extended ranges if the situation required it. The movement to their position began before dawn, with the team navigating through darkness using night vision equipment and careful route selection. The weight of their equipment, combined with the steep terrain and high altitude, made the approach physically demanding. Jake found his farm background helpful in dealing with the physical challenges, but the mental stress of operating in hostile territory was entirely new. Reaching their position as the sun rose, the team immediately began constructing a concealed observation post using natural materials and camouflage nets. The location provided excellent visibility of the target area while offering multiple escape routes and concealment from potential observation. Jake marveled at Rodriguez's expertise in selecting and preparing the position. The surveillance phase of the mission proved tedious but essential. For hours, team members rotated between observation duties, documenting activity in the target area and reporting their findings to higher headquarters. Jake learned the importance of patience and attention to detail, skills that were crucial for successful reconnaissance operations. During the second day of surveillance, significant activity was observed at the target compound. Multiple vehicles arrived carrying what appeared to be weapons and supplies. Intelligence analysts confirmed that the high-value target had likely arrived and was meeting with other hostile leaders to plan future operations against coalition forces. Authorization came for the team to engage the target if a clear shot presented itself. Rodriguez explained the rules of engagement and emphasized the importance of positive target identification before taking any action. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Jake's shoulders as he realized he might soon face his first combat engagement. Weather conditions on the third day created additional challenges. Strong winds and intermittent precipitation affected visibility and would significantly complicate any long-range engagement. Rodriguez used these conditions as teaching opportunities, explaining how environmental factors influenced shooting decisions and tactical planning. Late in the afternoon, the target finally appeared in an area that provided a clear line of sight from the team's position. Rodriguez confirmed the target's identity through careful observation and comparison with intelligence photographs. The range to the target was approximately 1,200 meters, well within the capabilities of their weapon system under normal conditions. However, the environmental conditions were far from normal. Crosswinds exceeded 20 miles per hour, with gusts reaching even higher velocities. The The target was visible for only brief moments as he moved between buildings, providing limited opportunities for engagement. Rodriguez made the tactical decision to wait for better conditions rather than risk a marginal shot. Jake watched intently as Rodriguez demonstrated the decision-making process that separated experienced snipers from novices. She considered multiple factors including wind conditions, target movement patterns, potential collateral damage, and escape route security. The patience required for such operations was unlike anything Jake had experienced during training. As evening approached, the target appeared again in a more exposed position. Wind conditions had moderated somewhat, but the range and environmental factors still presented significant challenges. Rodriguez determined that the shot was feasible but difficult, requiring precise calculations and flawless execution. She walked Jake through the mathematical calculations required for the engagement, considering factors such as range, wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, and altitude. The complexity of the calculations reinforced the importance of the classroom instruction he had received during training. Every variable had to be accounted for to ensure accuracy at extended range. Rodriguez took the shot, and Jake observed the target through his spotting scope. The projectile's time of flight seemed endless, but the impact was precise and immediate. The target was eliminated cleanly, and the team immediately began preparing to withdraw from their position as security protocols dictated. The successful engagement marked a significant moment in Jake's development as a sniper. He had witnessed the culmination of training, experience, and skill in a real-world situation. Rodriguez's expertise had been evident throughout the mission, from planning and preparation through execution and withdrawal. During the movement back to base, Rodriguez shared insights about the mission and emphasized the lessons Jake should take away from the experience. She explained that successful sniping required much more than accurate shooting. It demanded tactical understanding, environmental awareness, patience, and sound judgment. Back at the base, the mission was thoroughly debriefed with intelligence personnel and command staff. Jake learned about the broader context of their operation and how their success contributed to ongoing efforts to disrupt hostile activities in the region. The high-value target had been eliminated without civilian casualties or compromise to other operations. In the weeks following this mission, Jake participated in several additional operations that tested and expanded his capabilities. Each mission presented unique challenges and learning opportunities. Gradually building his confidence and expertise, Rodriguez continued to mentor him, sharing knowledge gained through years of operational experience. One particularly challenging operation required the team to establish a position at extreme altitude, where oxygen levels significantly affected human performance. Jake learned to compensate for the physiological effects of high altitude while maintaining the precision required for accurate shooting. The mission was successful, but the physical demands highlighted the importance of comprehensive preparation. Another mission involved providing overwatch for a convoy moving through a narrow mountain pass known to be frequented by hostile forces. The team's position allowed them to cover several kilometers of the route, but the complex terrain created numerous potential ambush sites. Jake learned valuable lessons about tactical positioning and threat assessment during this operation. As his experience grew, Jake began to understand the true complexity of the sniper's role in modern military operations. Beyond marksmanship skills, snipers served as intelligence gatherers, providing detailed observations of enemy activities and terrain features. Their reports often influenced broader tactical decisions and operational planning. Rodriguez gradually increased Jake's responsibilities during missions, allowing him to take the lead in planning certain aspects of their operations. This hands-on experience proved invaluable in developing his tactical understanding and leadership capabilities. She emphasized that senior snipers were expected to mentor junior personnel, just as she was mentoring him. The deployment also exposed Jake to the psychological demands of combat operations. The stress of operating in hostile territory, combined with the responsibility of taking human life when necessary, required strong mental resilience. He learned coping strategies and found support through military chaplains and mental health professionals. Jake's reputation within the unit began to grow as word spread of his consistent performance and rapid development. Senior leaders took notice of his capabilities, and he was selected for increasingly complex and sensitive missions. However, he remained humble and focused on continuous improvement rather than seeking recognition. The diverse missions during his deployment provided exposure to various aspects of sniper operations. He learned about urban environments, rural terrain, different weather conditions, and varying tactical situations. Each experience added to his knowledge base and prepared him for future challenges. As his first deployment neared its end, Jake reflected on the tremendous growth he had experienced. The uncertain farm boy who had arrived at sniper school had been transformed into a confident and capable operator. However, he understood that his education was far from complete, and future deployments would present even greater challenges. Rodriguez's mentorship had been instrumental in his development, and Jake was determined to eventually provide similar guidance to future junior snipers. The tradition of passing knowledge from experienced operators to newcomers was essential for maintaining the high standards expected of elite military units. The foundation for what would become a legendary shot had been carefully laid through months of training, mentorship, and operational experience. Jake had demonstrated consistent performance under various conditions and proven his ability to function effectively in high-stress situations. However, the ultimate test of his capabilities still lay ahead, waiting in the mountains where distances were measured not in hundreds of meters, but in miles. 18 months into his second deployment, Jake Morrison had earned recognition as one of the most skilled marksmen in his unit. His reputation for precision and reliability under pressure had spread throughout the special operations community. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for the mission that would define his career and establish a new standard for long-range marksmanship. The intelligence briefing came on a grey morning in late autumn. Satellite imagery and human intelligence sources had identified a high-priority target operating from a remote mountain stronghold that intelligence analysts believed was being used to coordinate major attacks against civilian populations. The target was a notorious terrorist leader, whose elimination had become a top priority for coalition forces. The compound was situated on a narrow ledge carved into a nearly vertical mountain face, accessible only through a single treacherous path that was heavily guarded and monitored. Conventional assault would be impossible without massive casualties, and airstrikes were not feasible due to the presence of civilian hostages being held at the facility. The only viable option was a precision long-range engagement. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the task force commander, assembled a briefing that included meteorologists, intelligence analysts, ballistics experts, and senior snipers. The target location was identified as being 4,700 meters from the nearest feasible shooting position, a distance that pushed the absolute limits of current military sniper capabilities and equipment. Jake studied the topographical maps and satellite photographs with intense concentration. The shooting position would be located on a peak across a vast canyon from the target compound. The elevation difference between the shooting position and target was over 800 meters, adding another layer of complexity to an already impossible-seeming shot. Weather data from the target area painted a challenging picture. Mountain winds were unpredictable and could exceed 50 miles per hour, with sudden shifts in direction and velocity. Temperature variations between the shooting position and target area could affect ballistic performance significantly. Atmospheric pressure differences due to elevation would further complicate trajectory calculations. The ballistics team ran preliminary calculations that were sobering in their complexity. At 4,700 meters, the projectile would experience a flight time of over 6 seconds, during which atmospheric conditions could change dramatically. Wind effects would be magnified exponentially at such ranges, and the slightest miscalculation could result in a miss measured in meters rather than inches. Sergeant Major Williams, now serving as the senior sniper advisor for the task force, recommended Jake for the mission based on his exceptional performance record and demonstrated ability to perform under extreme pressure. However, even Williams acknowledged that the shot would require not just skill, but an element of luck that no amount of training could guarantee. The weapon selected for the mission was a specialized long-range rifle system, equipped with the most advanced optics and ballistic computers available to military forces. The ammunition was precision-manufactured match-grade rounds specifically selected for their ballistic consistency and long-range performance characteristics. Every component was tested and verified before the mission. Jake spent 3 days studying weather patterns in the target area, analyzing historical data and current forecasts. He worked with meteorologists to understand the complex wind patterns created by the mountainous terrain, learning how thermal effects and pressure differentials could create unexpected atmospheric conditions. The approach to the shooting position required a week-long movement through some of the most challenging terrain in the region. Jake's team consisted of 4 experienced operators: a spotter, a security specialist, a communications expert, and a medic. Each team member was essential for mission success and survival in the harsh mountain environment. The movement began under cover of darkness, with the team following carefully planned routes that avoided known enemy positions and observation points. They carried specialized cold weather gear and high-altitude equipment, as their destination was above the tree line where temperatures regularly dropped below freezing, even during summer months. Progress was slow and methodical, with frequent stops to check navigation and assess security. The weight of equipment, combined with the increasingly thin air at high altitude, made each day's movement physically demanding. Jake found his Montana farm background helpful, but the sustained exertion at extreme altitude tested even his considerable endurance. On the fourth day of movement, the team encountered unexpected weather that forced them to shelter in a hastily constructed snow cave for 18 hours while a severe storm passed through the area. The delay threatened to compromise their mission timeline, but the team leader decided that attempting to continue movement in whiteout conditions would be too dangerous. The storm also provided valuable intelligence about weather patterns in the target area. Jake observed how wind conditions changed during the storm and how the mountain terrain affected air currents. This first-hand experience would prove crucial when making final calculations for the shot. When the weather cleared, the team resumed movement toward their objective. The final approach to the shooting position required technical climbing skills and specialized equipment. The location selected by mission planners was a narrow ledge barely wide enough for 2 people, but it provided the only clear line of sight to the target area at the required distance. Establishing the shooting position took several hours of careful work. The team constructed a concealed hide using natural materials and camouflage netting, while Jake and his spotter set up the rifle system and began the complex process of verifying all calculations and equipment settings. Every detail had to be perfect for success at such an extreme range. The target area came into view through their high-powered optics, revealing details that had been impossible to discern from satellite imagery. The compound was indeed situated on a narrow ledge, with buildings constructed directly into the rock face. Security personnel were visible at various points and civilian movements could be observed near some structures. Jake and his spotter, Staff Sergeant David Chen, began the painstaking process of range verification and environmental measurement. Using laser range-finding equipment, they confirmed the distance to various points around the target area. The primary target building was exactly 4,687 meters from their position, slightly less than the original estimate, but still well beyond conventional engagement ranges. Wind measurement presented the greatest challenge. Conditions at their position were relatively calm, but observation of vegetation and dust patterns in the target area indicated significant wind activity across the canyon. Chen used specialized equipment to measure wind speed and direction at their location, while Jake observed environmental indicators to estimate conditions along the projected flight path. Temperature measurements revealed a significant differential between their position and the target area. The shooting position was at 3,200 meters elevation with a temperature of -8 degrees Celsius, while the target area at 2,400 meters was estimated to be approximately 15 degrees warmer. This temperature difference would affect air density and projectile performance. The ballistic computer integrated all available data to generate firing solutions, but Jake and Chen also performed manual calculations to verify the computer's recommendations. The mathematical complexity was staggering, involving dozens of variables that could affect projectile trajectory over the extended flight time. Atmospheric pressure readings indicated conditions that would affect projectile performance in ways that were difficult to predict precisely. The extreme range meant that small variations in air density could accumulate into significant trajectory changes. Jake had to make educated estimates about conditions along the flight path that could not be measured directly. For 2 days, the team maintained surveillance of the target area while refining their calculations and waiting for optimal conditions. The target was observed multiple times, but weather conditions were never quite suitable for attempting such an extreme range engagement. Jake exercised the patience that had been drilled into him during training, understanding that one shot would likely be all they would get. On the 3rd morning, weather conditions appeared to be approaching optimal parameters. Wind speeds were moderate and consistent, with no major weather systems moving through the area. Temperature conditions were stable, and atmospheric pressure readings indicated relatively uniform air density across the engagement area. At 0847 hours, the target appeared in an exposed position near the main building of the compound. Chen confirmed positive identification through careful observation through comparison with intelligence photographs. The target remained in position, apparently conducting a meeting with other individuals in an open area that provided a clear line of sight from Jake's position. Chen called out wind readings and atmospheric conditions while Jake made final adjustments to his rifle system. The ballistic computer indicated that the projectile would take 6.3 seconds to reach the target, during which it would drop over 200 meters from the line of sight and drift substantially due to wind effects and Coriolis forces from the Earth's rotation. Jake controlled his breathing and heart rate using techniques learned during training, understanding that physical stability was crucial for accuracy at such ranges. The crosshairs settled on the calculated aim point, which was several meters away from the actual target to compensate for all the environmental factors affecting projectile flight. The trigger brake was smooth and controlled, following thousands of hours of practice that had made the motion automatic. The rifle recoiled against Jake's shoulder as the precisely crafted projectile began its journey across the canyon. Chen immediately began tracking the target through his spotting scope, calling out observations. The next 6 seconds felt like an eternity. Jake maintained his position behind the rifle, following through with proper technique while Chen continued to observe the target area. Radio communications were maintained with the command post, which was monitoring the situation through satellite feeds and other intelligence assets. The impact was visible through their high-powered optics as a small puff of dust and debris. Chen's excited voice confirmed what Jake had hoped, but barely dared to believe. Target down. Direct hit. The terrorist leader had been eliminated instantly by a shot that defied conventional understanding of sniper capabilities. Immediate confirmation came through multiple intelligence sources monitoring the compound. The target had been eliminated cleanly without civilian casualties or compromise to other ongoing operations. The single shot had accomplished what conventional military operations could not have achieved without massive risk and resource expenditure. The team immediately began preparing for withdrawal, following security protocols that required rapid departure from the shooting position. The successful engagement would certainly prompt hostile forces to search for the source of the attack, making their position dangerous within hours. During the movement back to friendly lines, Jake reflected on the magnitude of what had been accomplished. The shot represented the culmination of years of training, months of preparation, and countless hours of practice. However, he also understood that luck and favorable conditions had played a role in the success. Back at base, the mission was thoroughly analyzed by ballistics experts and military historians. The shot was officially confirmed as the longest successful military sniper engagement on record, exceeding the previous record by over 1,200 meters. The mathematical probability of success at such a range was calculated to be extremely low, making the achievement even more remarkable. Jake found himself thrust into an unwanted spotlight as news of the record shot spread throughout the military community. He remained humble about the achievement, consistently crediting his training, equipment, and team support for the success. He understood that individual achievement in military operations was always the result of collective effort and preparation. The technical analysis of the shot provided valuable data for improving long-range shooting techniques and equipment design. Ballistics experts studied every aspect of the engagement to better understand projectile performance at extreme ranges and to develop improved training methods for future snipers. Jake's achievement led to assignment as an instructor at the Advanced Sniper School, where he could share his knowledge and experience with new generations of marksmen. He emphasized to his students that technical skill was only one component of successful sniping, and that patience, judgment, and teamwork were equally important. The record shot at 4,700 meters became a benchmark for the sniper community, demonstrating the outer limits of what was possible with current technology and exceptional skill. However, Jake understood that such extreme range engagements would remain rare exceptions rather than routine capabilities. Years later, as Jake advanced in rank and responsibility, he continued to emphasize the fundamentals that had made his success possible. The impossible shot had made him famous within military circles, but his greatest satisfaction came from the knowledge that his training and mentorship had helped develop other skilled snipers who served with honor and distinction. The farm boy from Montana had achieved something that military experts had considered nearly impossible. The shot that stunned everyone had required the perfect combination of skill, preparation, technology, and circumstance. It stood as testament to what could be accomplished when human capability was pushed to its absolute limits in service of a critical mission.